Professor! What are you doing?
Have you ever heard of knocking?
I never knock. But I think I'm going to now. What are you watching? And why do you have a bathtub in your office?
It's a video on quantum death. And the bathtub is convenient. Now, if you wouldn't mind, please turn around.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I have a new file here.
Is it the finale to this Merrick story we have been following? Well?
Are you just gonna sit in there?
Yes. I'm not going to get out and inconvenience myself just because you decided to barge in.
Oh, okay, but, no, it's a different story from another source.
Like the other we had.
Yeah, pretty much.
Who is the author of this file?
C.P. Bearden. Why do I know that name?
You should know that name. He is prominent on TikTok and is finishing up his debut novel. The Soil is calling.
I still don't understand how you have a social media presence, but that name does ring a bell. He does a lot of the music mashups with books and tons of book reviews, right?
That is correct. He has impeccable taste in fiction and in music. And honestly, I cannot wait to read his novel. I think it comes out in January.
Well, did you pre-order it?
You can do that.
Yeah, most anyone can.
Find that link for me and post it in the show notes so I can do that.
Show notes?
Oh, right. That is outside of your understanding. I'll take care of it.
So, are we going to listen to the file?
I'm just waiting for you to pop it in.
Are you gonna say your thing?
Fine. Strap in tight. The trials are about to begin.
Sloane wasn't impressed by the hole when she first spotted it over the ridge. Other than the event horizon surrounding it where not even a blade of grass dared grow, it looked like nothing more than an entrance to a small cave. Not until she stepped inside the barren circle did she begin to grasp the immensity of it. This was a dead zone, a place where all life was forbidden. Sloane's body trembled as dread skittered beneath her skin, spreading itself like a cancer until it was the only thing she could feel. From here on, every breath she drew would be poisonous, every surface she touched contaminated. To proceed was to die. But what about her mother? She had been exploring the far reaches of the hole since before Sloane was even born. That was, after all, how Sloane came to be conceived. Or so the story went. Sloane looked at her mother. She was tall and lean and strong, but years of exposure to the hole had not been kind to her, carving deep creases into her face and clouding her eyes. Sloane wasn't sure exactly how old her mother was. She looked older than most of the village elders, though that was impossible. The Voyagers, as they were called, did not live long lives. Most died in their 20s, alone, in quarantine deathbeds as an alien illness devoured them from the inside. The first generation of Voyagers had all died years ago. Sloane's mother was the only one left. This only further exacerbated the villagers' trepidation towards her and Sloane. Voyagers were expected to die young. It was a brutal fact of life that had long been accepted. People were unnerved when Sloane's mother emerged from the hole with a swollen belly that turned into a healthy baby girl 9 months later. After living on for another 18 years while the rest of her comrades died agonizing deaths, worry turned into terror. The two were viewed as outcasts, dangerous and unnatural. Some villagers prayed for them out of sympathy, offering sacrifices of slaughtered lambs before an expedition. Others silently cursed them behind their backs, wishing they would die out.
Are you ready to descend?
Sloane's mother asked.
Yes, Commander.
Sloane replied with no hesitation, despite the fear pounding in her chest. She'd never uttered the words mama or mom or even mother. To Sloane, her mother had always been, and always would be, Commander. Had she been exposed to the other children in the village and seen the way they interacted with their parents, she might have mourned the material relationship she'd never have. But she, like her mother, only knew one love, one motivation, and that was to uncover the mysteries hidden deep inside the hole. Sloane followed close behind her mother. A 6-foot-long rope tethered them together to keep them from getting separated in the labyrinth. Darkness oozed out of the hole, staining the sandy soil around them. Through a heavy cloth mask, Sloane breathed in her first whiffs of the acrid scent. She wasn't sure what she'd expect it to smell like, but this was far worse. It was a tight fit with her equipment on, but Sloane managed to squeeze herself into the narrow slit in the earth. Now she understood why the Voyagers subsisted on a starvation diet of soup and unleavened bread. Light from the outside struggled to penetrate through the murky air in the cave, not even reaching the floor. Sloane attached her torch to a rod protruding from her rucksack and lit the wick. A ball of flame erupted in front of her, casting the hollow in a greenish glow. Sloane saw that she and her mother were not alone. Dozens of perfectly preserved corpses littered the floor, their faces so serene they might have been sleeping. But Sloane knew better. They had died, afraid in the dark, their internal organs liquefying from the contaminated air. It took months of experimentation before the Voyagers learned that covering their nose and mouth in a heavy canvas soaked in copper sulfate would stave off the effects, but not eliminate them.
Keep your eyes off the floor,
Sloane's mother said in a warning tone.
Go flying staring at the dead here.
Sloane did as she was told. A lifetime of training had conditioned her to follow orders, regardless of how absurd they sounded. Down here, hesitating even a second could get you killed. So she stole one last glance at the dead women surrounding her and lifted her chin so as not to be tempted again. All the Voyagers were female. The reasons why were kept secret. But Sloane supposed it had to do with the ability to reproduce, since every Voyager had her eggs removed prior to the first expedition. Another reason why Sloane's birth was considered a miracle to some and sacrilege to others. Suddenly, the entrance closed up along with the last gasp of the outside world.
It's time to go, Sloane.
Sloane looked up to where the opening should have been. It would be hours and maybe days before it reopened. Her heart quickened with the realization that it was too late to turn back. She felt a tug at her waist from the rope. Her mother was already making her way deeper into the abyss. The two walked single file through a narrow passage that twisted for what felt like miles. Sloane made herself as thin as she could to keep from touching the rocky walls. Every time she brushed up against something, a chill shivered down her spine, and she swore that she could feel the deathly cold rock through her clothing. She remembered being a young girl and seeing the older Voyagers with their amputated fingers from touching too much inside the hole. Somehow, her mother still had all 10 digits. A childish part of Sloane hoped she'd inherited her mother's ability to keep exploring down here and absorb the contamination like it was nectar. By the time the passage opened up again, Sloane's feet were numb and her stomach screamed for nourishment. She chewed on her tongue until her mouth filled with a metallic taste of blood. Her rucksack grew heavier with the knowledge that enough food to last 3 days was packed inside. But she wouldn't dare ask for a break. For most of her life, Sloane's mother had watched her from a distance, never uttering a word of praise for her only offspring. Even when she had proven herself time and time again, her mother kept silent. Being the strongest, the most capable of her generation of voyagers wasn't enough for her mother. Sloane would continue walking until she died of exhaustion, if that meant being seen by her mother. They entered a chamber large enough to fit the entire village in. Jagged cliffs jutted up into the air like towers, cutting through a haze that lingered below the ceiling. Red flares marked the entrances to the caves spread out along the cliffs, signaling which had been explored.
How could the flames still be burning after all this time?
The fog here is highly flammable.
Sloane's mother said, as if reading her mind.
I doubt the flares will ever burn out.
The closer they came to the cliffs, the more they looked like the ancient structures of steel and glass Sloane had read about.
It's a village?
She asked. Sloane's mother nodded.
Inside the hole.
When our predecessors ruled this land, there was no hole.
Sloane gazed up at the towering monstrosities. Their silhouettes stood like the shadow of ghosts in the dim light of the flares, their surfaces corroded by rust and silty fungi. They dwarfed anything she'd ever imagined could exist, and the hole had gobbled them up like they were breadcrumbs. The air was stagnant, but Sloane could hear the rustling of the wind blowing out of the maw of the large edifice. It leaned to the side, like a crippled old man that could no longer hold up his own weight. Still, it dwarfed the others around it. This was the Elder Tower, the one to which all others bowed, and it beckoned Sloane to enter. Sloane broke free into a full sprint, the abruptness of her motion sniffing out her torch. She didn't even notice the absence of her guiding light, and even if she had noticed, she wouldn't have cared. The whispering wind fluttered tantalizingly close to the formation words, falling just shy of something that could be considered language.
I need to get closer.
She thought.
Damn, I'll understand.
From behind her, Sloane's mother screamed her name, along with a profanity-laced command to come back. To leave your commander was to die. That's why voyagers were always tethered when they explored.
What happened to the tether?
It must have snapped when Sloane had taken off, as her mother was so far behind her now. She could barely make out her words. She wagered that if she turned her head back to look, she wouldn't be able to see either. She felt as though she was alone in this enormous cave. So she ran. She ran until not only were her feet numb, but the entire lower half of her body was numb, her legs only continuing to carry her on rote memorization of the movement. She flew past the flare blazing at the entrance and threw herself into the black chasm with no light to guide her. The fall was longer than Sloane expected. She didn't remember hitting the bottom, only waking up, her body sinking into squishy mud. The cold sludge clung to her as she lifted herself up. It seeped through her clothes, entangling itself in her hair. She wiped it from her cheek hurriedly, remembering its toxicity. Her skin tingled, like a horde of tiny leeches had latched their teeth into her. A layer of glowing fog lingered just below her knees, obscuring the ground. That's when she felt the pulsing. It came from the ground itself. Then she felt it in the walls too. The tower was alive. Total darkness fell upon her as she looked up. The entrance, with its beacon torch, was gone. Sloane cursed under her breath.
Now I'll be stuck down here forever.
Perhaps.
The sound of another voice startled Sloane, and she nearly fell back into the mud. Her eyes darted around, but it was too dark to see anything. Then a figure emerged from the void, illuminated by a pale lamp dangling from her waist. It was her mother.
But forever doesn't have to be so long.
What happened?
Sloane asked, still trying to remember how she ended up in the belly of one of those beasts.
I knew it would call to you. I just didn't know you'd take off into the darkness like a frightened doe. You're lucky you didn't choose one of the deeper rifts to plunge yourself into.
The tether.
Sloane felt along her waist until her fingers grasped the rope. She pulled it to the end where it had broken. The frayed strands were coated in mud, but ended in a perfectly clean break.
You cut the tether.
Sloane's mother let out a laugh that sounded more like a cough.
Why would I do that?
Sloane looked away in embarrassment. Despite the darkness and mask that covered her reddening face, hot tears filled the corner of her eyes, threatening to pour down her cheeks.
No, if you're done wasting time, we need to find a way out of here. And try to keep up.
She turned her back on Sloane and plodded off into the dark. The stirring whispers drifted through the air again. Sloane cocked her head, trying desperately to hear. Again, it failed to pattern itself into words.
You said it was calling to me. Shouldn't we investigate that?
Even when she was out of sight, Sloane could sense her mother's disapproving gaze.
I thought you might lead us to something worth investigating. But I was wrong. You chose a structure that has nothing to offer.
Sloane ran to catch up with her mother. Maybe if she could see her, she could convince her that she hadn't chosen wrong. The voice originated from this very pit. They need only dig deep enough to find it.
But it's alive. I can feel its heartbeat under my feet. I hear its breath.
They're all alive, Sloane. The hole itself is alive. Did you not see the flare marking the entrance? That means it's been mapped.
Did you map it yourself?
Sloane's mother stopped, her eyes twitching.
No, it was...
Then how can you be sure it's fully explored?
There was a long moment of quiet between them when only the throaty voice of the tower could be heard, still murmuring unintelligibly. Sloane held her breath, knowing that she could be punished severely for speaking to any commander like this, much less her mother.
Fine.
Sloane's mother finally said.
Lead the way.
The throbbing in the floor grew stronger the further down the structure they descended. It overpowered Sloane to the point that her own heart followed the hurried cadence. She felt like a parasite, burrowing down into the bowels of a colossal being. Eventually, the whispering took a form that Sloane could understand. It still wasn't words, but she knew what it was telling her.
Come to me, my child, my sweet daughter of the rising generation.
So Sloane followed the voice deeper into the hole, unaware and uncaring if her mother was nearby. Occasionally, her foot would land on something hard and bony, and she knew they were close. This was the place where so many voyagers had attempted to reach, but none could withstand the energy radiating from within. This was the core, the origin, Sloane's origin. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, and she saw that she was in a great hall with vaulted ceilings so high she couldn't see the top. It was even larger than the chamber that housed the towers. At the center of the room lay a heap of coagulated bodies, torn and broken, their pink innards exposed and festering. It was impossible to tell where one corpse ended and the next began. They were all melded together. How many voyagers had made it this far, only to perish in the presence of a creature they knew nothing of? A god they knew nothing of. The urge to touch the mass bubbled up inside Sloane. She stepped forward, but something stopped her. A warm, moist hand on her shoulder. Her mother's hand.
Don't.
Was all she said. Sloane turned to look at her mother. Her commander. The hard woman's features had softened, melted. Her right eye dropped in its socket. Her skin was slick and blotchy, dripping with sweat. But it wasn't sweat. It was droplets of pus oozing from her face. Soft rain began to fall on them. A sickly sweet aroma filled the air. Sloane lifted her mother's hand from her shoulder and lowered it gently. It left a sticky resin behind.
Ignore her. Enter the gateway. Leave your wretched infantile life behind.
What about my mother?
Sloane's heart plummeted as soon as the words left her mouth. For she knew what would become of her mother. In a way, she had always known. Her role was one of sacrifice. And now, she had fulfilled it. A look of confusion and fear crept over her mother's face, and for one last moment, she looked young again. Then she collapsed onto the floor. A rogue appendage reached out of the pile of dead voyagers and pulled her body into itself until there was no distinguishing piece of the commander left. Now it was Sloane's turn. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. But fear had never been so distant. The throbbing intensified, and light emanated from the floor. She stepped into the light and felt a falling sensation. Then nothing. Sloane awoke in the forest to the song of birds, the warmth of the sun caressing her cheek. She lifted herself up from a bed of moss and leaves. Her gear was gone, as were her clothes. How long had she been asleep? She remembered the words of her new god. Hope and excitement burned inside her, making her so giddy she nearly let out a squeal. She had transcended, but she didn't feel any different. No surge of power or glimmer of enlightenment. She felt nauseous, weak, tired. All the feelings that had plagued her since birth. She ran a hand through her hair, only to find that most of it had been burned away. The last tufts of scorched locks drifted to the ground, grazing her skin. Her skin. It was exfoliating, dropping off her body in clumps along with her hair. Bile raced up Sloane's throat, and it took all of her strength to hold it down. She fell to her knees and let out a primal heaving sound that was neither human nor animalistic. She scooped up handfuls of damp soil, squeezing it between her fingers. The throbbing pulse returned. Only this time, it was coming from inside her. She ran her filthy hands over her body, leaving behind trails of muddy earth. But she couldn't find the source of the pulse. Then her belly began to swell.